Since Tony or I have posted new content or gone live, there were some set videos that were posted for last week, but I pre-done those and scheduled them out, and I just didn't want to deal with anything, so I just kind of left it as it was. I do have some scheduled posts for this week as well. I technically made them a while ago, not a while, but pre last week's events. So I was in Flagstaff last week with my husband and all of my family. It was for obvious reasons.
Hey friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Tuesday, March 12th, 2024. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Yesterday, we discussed that Garrison Brown was laid to rest last week in a private service for his friends, family, and service members in the National Guard. Yesterday, a number of family began sharing their thoughts and posting tributes about Garrison onto their social media. Some of his friends and even a cousin shared their heartfelt tributes to Garrison. As more details are coming out about the family and as more family members are speaking up and sharing their thoughts and tributes about Garrison, one family member, Mykelti, returned to her Patreon and updated her patrons about her plans to move forward. It would appear, based on what she's saying in her Patreon, that the family intends to move forward with filming, and her rationalization for continuing on with Patreon is that Garrison would want her to do that because he would want people to get back to their normal life. And we will share the whole video. Some people saw the video and were a little bit confused. Other people were kind of shocked. And at the end of the day, if the Sister Wives continues, if the show continues, if the show films on, the fans will have something to say, and it will either be positive or negative. Right now, this video I shared of Mykelti wasn't very well received on my social media platforms, so I will allow you guys to inform your own decisions, and I'll provide some backstory to what she's saying as we go through this clip. No matter what everyone thinks, family is under contract, and TLC has some very, very stringent guidelines when it comes to filming, when it comes to the breaking contract and breach of contract. Nobody needs to look that far but to see what happened to John Gosselin when he attempted to stop filming for the show that he and his wife were a part of, and he was sued by TLC for not allowing them to film, which ultimately ended up with him getting a judgment, and he owes them still over $1 million. So unless the Browns want to pay TLC $1 million or more for breach of contract, they may have to continue filming. Mykelti is going to continue posting on her Patreon, and she shared some insight into what she was doing last week and what her thoughts were for moving forward.
I was in Flagstaff last week with my husband and all of my family. It was for obvious reasons. My brother passed away. It has sucked a lot. I'm a bright side kind of person, and I always like to look at the bright side of everything. The bright side of his passing is he's obviously no longer in pain or hurting or sad because he's in a better place. Of course, I hope he's in a better place. And the other bright side is I've got to see all of my family together for the first time in years. And I think that ultimately, obviously, Garrison would have been happy by that.
Mykelti's Patreon is basically where she posts reaction videos and talks about the show. And she has this Patreon basically because her parents don't pay her for the show, and it's a way for her to make money through the show without getting paid by the show. I don't know if that makes sense. But so she was updating her patrons about where she was at. She hadn't posted in a week. And so she says that she's in Flagstaff. And I think when I first saw this, I was a little bit taken aback because she says that, she's a glass is half full kind of girl. And so she wanted to look at the positives of this situation, even though it's very tragic, and that she hopes that he's in a better place because he's not in pain. And she also noted that her whole family was together for the first time in years. And I think she still has a lot of trauma about her family split. And I think that her desire for her family being unified is kind of being clouded in her grief, maybe, because obviously the whole family wasn't there. Robert Garrison Brown was not there. So the whole family wasn't there. But Mykelti is very close to Cody and Robin, and so it's always been important for her to have everyone together. And that's something that she wants in her life. And so for her, she feels like that would have been something that Garrison would have wanted. And we don't know what Garrison would have wanted. It's hard to know. Garrison did not have a good relationship with his dad or with Robin. He might have wanted his family to be happy. And then as far as her saying that she hopes that he's no longer in pain, some of the criticism online was that perhaps if he would have gotten help and had resources, this could have been prevented. And at this point in time, it's all kind of would have, could have, should have. It's challenging because she grew up in a culture where they're all taught to keep sweet no matter what. And so regardless of what she's feeling, she also has this programming where it's like she has to constantly look at the positive, and she's told all the time to like not look at the negative, and that looking at the negative is dwelling on what you can't control. And this is her way of processing.
So Tony and I will not be going live on Tuesday, but we will go live on Wednesday to go back to our regular routine and stuff. And I don't know if we're going to officially change it to Wednesdays or if next week we'll come back to Tuesdays, but I will update when I know more. The thing I know about Garrison is he wouldn't have wanted us all to stop living our life and stop doing what we need to do and what we want to do, and hobbies and extracurricular activities and fun side things. He wouldn't want us to stop it. So yeah, we do have some more things for him in honor of him coming up this next month, and then some more in the next couple of months. There's like a Brown family reunion in Wyoming that a lot of my family, if not most of them, are going to honor him. You done, Avalon?
Tony and Mykelti make probably a considerable amount of money every single month from their Patreon. So having to post and go back to work wouldn't be unreasonable if this is how she's decided that she wants to make her money. And she said that Garrison wouldn't have wanted any of them to quit their lives and not go on with their lives about what makes them happy and what makes them feel good and their extracurricular activities or their hobbies. That's her, I guess, sort of rationalization for continuing on with her Patreon. And, here's the thing. Garrison didn't have the closest relationship with all of his siblings, obviously. He and Mykelti specifically didn't have a super close relationship. She, before he passed away, had spoken about pretty in depth on her Patreon in the past that, she wasn't that close to Garrison or to Gabriel growing up, that once she moved out, she doesn't really have much of a relationship with them outside of family gatherings. She sort of took the position of, when it came to her parents, Cody and Robin fighting with Garrison and Gabriel, she took Cody and Robin's side and had said on her Patreon that they weren't following the rules and that if they wanted to make up with their dad, the phone goes both ways. Kind of the same parroting that Cody makes about the boys. And, she has a very close relationship with Robin, so she tends to side with Robin a lot. And growing up, she didn't have a lot of relationships with her siblings. She's kind of explained it on her Patreon. It's hard to explain, but The oldest girls were all a clique because they were the firstborns, and so they had their own special relationship because firstborn daughters are treated a certain way in this culture. And then she was born near Hunter, but she and Hunter weren't close. And then there was a bunch of boys born right after her. And then her closest sibling that's a sister is Gwendolyn, and she's significantly younger than her. So she didn't have like a female friendship with her siblings that were close in age to her, and she and Maddie didn't get along, and so she wasn't really close to any of her siblings, and that's kind of how she ended up going to Robin's house, because she needed someone. So she's kind of using, I guess, her Patreon to share her side of the story. And so when it comes to Garrison, she and Garrison haven't been that close in the last decade since she's moved out of her house and doesn't live with her parents anymore. All that to say that she wants to go back to her filming on Patreon. And I also would assume, because she says, we have a bunch of things planned for celebrations. There's a big family get together in Wyoming. It's safe to say all of that will be filmed, because they likely did not film the service. At least I hope they didn't. And so they'll do these memorials probably in lieu of the funeral services. And she hopes everyone will go. And this is what he would want. You know, it's just tragic that, you know, they couldn't have figured this out before this happened. I think he probably would have preferred to be here than to be gone. It's hard to move on in situations like this. And obviously, with knowing that filming's happening, some people are upset.
So Tony, the kids, and I, we all went down to Flagstaff, and we were there Tuesday night. We got there, you know, we left basically as soon as we heard. Powwowed with my family and then left. And then we came home Saturday night, breathe and decompress and cry a lot. We had to go shopping because we had just gone down to St. George, and then we had come back, and then we went to Flagstaff, so we didn't have anything in our house for like 2 weeks, like new stuff. Anyway, so we went shopping, and going into Costco actually sucked a lot. I broke down like multiple aisles crying just because, you know, living and going on and continuing your life like what it was before is hard. I'm sure that there's a lot of people and you guys who have experienced loss similar to this or different. All of it sucks. And there's not a lot people can do or people can say or people can help with, because ultimately it's just, you kind of got to go through it to be able to go through it. You just got to go through it.
So as I reported yesterday, based on what the cousin had posted on their Instagram, it sounds like the funeral must have been on Friday because she and Tony left on Saturday. When I shared this over on my Instagram, some people thought it was really weird for her to use the term powwow to describe going back to Flagstaff to deal with the loss of a sibling. And I will say it's an interesting word. It's not the correct term. A powwow would be a dance and a celebration for Indigenous people, and it's a way for them to celebrate their culture. And Indigenous people don't like it being appropriated to describe gatherings outside of their culture. And I wouldn't describe a funeral and funeral arrangements as a powwow. But again, she's grieving. All that aside, she's struggling to move on. She has to go home. She has to go shopping. She's breaking down. And then she said there's not a lot of things that people can do to help when you're going through a loss. And I want to be very clear, there is help available. I hope she's only talking about friends and family and other people that are not professionals, because there are resources to help families deal with the tragedy of a loss. And there's grief support groups, there's mental health professionals, there's psychological therapy that you can go through. There is trauma support for victims. There are plenty of professional services that are available to help process the grief. And if I could just state anything, is that you do not have to go through it alone. You don't have to go through it on your own. You don't have to work through it by yourself. That's kind of something that's an ingrained belief, I would assume, from their culture, where you just have to tough things out, man up, and get through things. And there is resources, and there are resources available. So if there's anything I can put in, if there's any message I can just make clear, you do not have to go through grief alone.
Anyway, so I do have some scheduled posts that will come out. I don't even remember the dates. And then we'll keep going. I will ask something though, and I will request you guys something. Please don't ask me any questions about Garrison or about my family or about, not my family, sorry, about like the events around this. Obviously, like, you know, you can ask questions about the family, but not events around this, because I will break down crying. And truthfully, it's something I'm not going to answer questions about anyway. Most of my siblings, we've all pretty much agreed that none of our life is private, really, because some of us are public in the show, but this is ours. This is private. So anyway, I appreciate you guys all tons. Thank you for going through this with me. Thank you for being there. Anyway, okay. I'll talk to you guys later. Wednesday, live.
She's going to resume her social media presence. And I frankly don't think she's ready based on how she's on this post. I'm sure that she feels like she needs to come back for money, but I think her viewers and her patrons would wait for her to take time to grieve and to process before feeling like she has to go back to the grind. And I understand some people feel like if they dive into work that it'll just take their mind off of it. But it doesn't actually take their mind off of it. It just pushes it away so that you don't have to think about it, and then it'll just come boiling back up. She doesn't want to answer questions about him. She doesn't want to answer questions about what happened, and says that she and her siblings agreed that this would be private. It's interesting that she would say she and her siblings agreed that this would be private, because it doesn't seem like her parents are going to be keeping this private if they're filming this for the show. And if this becomes part of content for the show, the details from their experience will be put out to the public, and it'll be put out in the context of what they're willing to share. And to be clear, if they're under contract, they might feel like they have no other choice. And I suppose they could do a hard line in the sand and say, no, we're not going to film on this. But it doesn't seem like she's saying that our parents have decided to make this private. And this would actually be a great time for people in the family to use what has occurred to build awareness for deaths like this, to discuss the impact of it, to share resources for individuals that might be at risk. And I don't know where they'll go with that so far. In all of the different posts so far, there hasn't been anyone but Mary that's put blue hearts, which is blue is the color for suicide awareness. This kind of death in the AUB and fundamentalism, and even in levels of Mormonism, is not viewed the way that you and I might look at it. In fundamentalism, according to the people I've talked to, specifically in the AUB, they look at these types of deaths the same way they look at someone that takes the life. They look at it as a crime, and they look at it as unpardonable. So they view people that do this as criminals that are going to go to hell. And there could be shame in their feelings as they try to unpack their indoctrination and understand the gravity of it. Because at this point, the family hasn't really shared publicly that he died that way. It's obviously been in the police report, we learned that way, but none of them have said he took his own life, right? And they'll get there, and I hope they get there, and I hope they realize they don't have to feel shame, and that this is a product of mental illness, and they could use their platform in a very positive way here to build awareness and share the warning signs and preventative measures that can be taken to help people in crisis. So Mykelti is going to go on, but she doesn't want to talk about it. It's going to be private, but it's really not going to be private. So fans will have to decide if they want to keep going and watch a show that's going to exploit this. I feel like my concern about this getting exploited is that knowing how Cody is, he is going to use this to rewrite history, and that he was justified because of Garrison drinking, or he was justified because this is why. See, this is why I did this. He'll be justified and he'll say, I was a good dad. See, I was a good dad. Or he might come in and try to like swoop everyone up and become the hero and use this for attention to like reshape his image. And because he's a narcissist, he's not going to be doing that with the best intentions. And I just feel like we shouldn't underscore the fact that Garrison had an estrangement with his father. We shouldn't forget that estrangement caused a lot of pain for him, and that no matter what we see on the show, we can't forget his thoughts and feelings about that and what contributed to that. And I think what some fans are responding to is, the show caused so much damage. Haven't they learned? And I don't know that they have. I think it might be still too soon. I think they won't even understand the damage this show has done is until it's canceled. And it's not going to get canceled anytime soon. So you'll all have to decide what you think and feel about it. But it won't be private. And the family isn't going to stay private on it. Even though the siblings agree, the parents are going to continue on. And what your thoughts are, I'd love to hear them in the comments. If you're sensitive to that, if you agree that they should go on. And again, when it comes to Mykelti, did she use appropriate words? No. Did she have the right affect? No. Does she really know what Garrison wants? No. She can't say. She knows what she wants and what she needs, and she can just use, I think, in all honesty, the best thing she could say is, I'm back to work because I want to be back to work. Because I don't know what Garrison would have wanted. But I know that Garrison probably wouldn't have wanted a death of him to take it for his family to all be together. I think he would have been happier if that would have happened while he was alive. And I think if we can start talking about what they could have done to prevent it, and how they can not have this happen again and help other people, that would be a really great way to use the platform. But that's just my opinion, and I'd love to hear yours. If you haven't yet given this video a thumbs up, please make sure that you do, and always make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet subscribed. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.